What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Year 2 preview of the USBL here on MLB The Show 21 as we're getting ready to start the second season of the USBL here. So it's going to be a really exciting one. It really is going to be. If you're excited for it, man, make sure you go ahead and smash that like button. And then also on top of that, hit that subscribe button as well if you happen to be brand new to the channel as well. But before we take a deep dive into these teams, let's go ahead, take a look at the top prospects for this season, just to see where some of your custom prospects are on the list. We got the number 2 prospect in George Alberto Hernandez. He was the number 1 pick in the USBL draft back in season number 1. He is sitting as the number 2 prospect in all of baseball, only to Robert Pusan, who got a little bit of play, late in the season last year. Might get some more action this year. But George Alberto Hernandez currently sitting as the number 2 prospect. He could very much see action in his USBL career early on. Another custom prospect to look after is the number 10 prospect, William Moore. He's going to start the season out in AAA. As of right now, he played a little bit in September last season. He batted .222, 1 home run, and 3 ribbies. He is currently the number 10 prospect, and he is also, just 22 years old, doing some good stuff. One prospect that we did end up seeing last year was Jacob Miller, starting pitcher for the Columbus Jets, and he's going to stay on the USBL roster as well. In his limited action last year, he was 3-2. He had a 2.77 ERA, and he had some good starts. He did some great things for that organization. 5 of his 6 starts were quality starts. That is really good for a rookie. So he will be staying on the USBL roster for the Columbus Jets, even with the acquisition of Clayton Kershaw. So then the last custom prospect that I wanted to go ahead and highlight is Derek Carrot IV. He is now listed as the 48th ranked prospect. He is currently sitting at the AAA level as of right now. Pretty good stuff. 70 overall, 22 years old on top of it. This is a guy that can do some pretty good stuff. A pretty all-around player, mostly known for his defense, 90 arm. This man has a cannon out there in right field. Also has some pretty solid speed as well on top of it. He's in the Minnesota Ducks organization, and I can't wait to see how that ends up turning out for him. So then we go ahead and get started with the Chicago Freeze. Now, they were the defending champions from season 1. They have the best roster, at least on paper. They got a top 5 contact, top 5 defense, and a top 5 pitching staff as well to go with it. And look at this starting lineup. They got some good players all over this roster. We're talking about guys like Noah Syndergaard, Dan Linker, Joe Musgrove, Chris Bassett. That is a good 1-4 group. In the bullpen, they have guys like J.B. Wendelken. Closer, they still have Aroldis Chapman, who starting to decline a little bit, but he still has 99 velocity to go with that as well. At the catcher position, they still have Jacob Stallings. First base, Jose Abreu. Second base, Chris Taylor. Still, they got a little bit more of a weakness at third base. Got Kyle Seager. But shortstop, they got Xander Bogaerts as well on top of it. A little bit lighter at the left field position, but then they round out the outfield with Alex Verdugo, and then in right field, Joey Gallo. So this is definitely one of the best rosters in all of baseball. They weren't very active in free agency in terms of trying to get some notable free agency signings, but this is a great roster nonetheless. But let's keep it in the AL Central for right now, as the Columbus Jets look a lot improved. They are listed with the 9th best roster in baseball themselves. We check out what this Columbus Jets roster has in store for us, and they're led by acquisition Clayton Kershaw. He came over from the San Diego Whales during free agency on a pretty good deal, 4 years, $42 million. He's got a great deal that's going to help this pitching rotation. Another pitcher to watch out for, though, is Jacob Miller. He is the number 5 starter going into this season for this Columbus Jets roster, and he did some good stuff back in season number 1. I'm looking to see him continue to develop here in season number 2. At the reliever position, they do have Jad Green to lead that bullpen, and also have Robert Osuna to close things out. With Alex Comey, he could potentially come in and get some close for you as well. He will start at the major league level. At second base, they do also have Colton Wong, who, played 143 games last season, batted .272. He was a bright spot for what was a pretty tough year for the Columbus Jets overall. Cesar Hernandez is still there as well, backing him up. He played in 133 games this past season, 12 homers, 49 ribbies, and a .252 batting average to go with it. At shortstop, we got Corey Seager, who is here with the Columbus Jets as well. Decent season for him. We'll see if he can bat a little bit better. And then to wrap things up for the Columbus Jets in terms of notable guys, Ronald Acuna Jr. playing in center field. He is the best player on their roster. A great all-around player. Hopefully he can help that Columbus team play much better here in season number 2. Next up, we have the Pittsburgh Force, formerly known as the Detroit Leopards, and they look much improved. They will boast a top 5 pitching staff, as well as some pretty fast guys. They have a 6th place in speed, so they look like to at least be a competent team moving into this season. As we check out what this Pittsburgh Force team has to offer, they got some great starters. They got Jacob deGrom, they got Chris Sale as stars. So this is a great 1-2 punch for Pittsburgh. Now at least keep them in a lot of games. Also in their bullpen, they do have Keon Kella, 28 years old, 84 overall, pitched in 44 appearances this past season, 2.41 ERA. So he was great when he was in there. We'll see if he gets some more opportunities as a setup guy. But then in the field, it gets a little bit thinner. Now, they do have guys like Tim LeCastro, who is a signing. Got him from the Minnesota Ducks in free agency. But I don't know how much offense he adds, because he only bat .236 last season. 6 homers, 42 RBIs to show for it. But will be a little bit more of an improvement. Adds a ton of speed out there in the infield. Also at third base, they still have Wario Suarez out there. He was a all-star last season. Batted .278, 40 homers, 109 ribbies. It wasn't his fault that Pittsburgh really did struggle this past season. Up next, we have the Nashville Blues. And what's surprising for the Nashville Blues, they made a couple of free agent acquisitions, but even with that, they are looking to go ahead and have themselves a really rough time. Nashville, 28th ranked team, but they do have the fastest roster in the USBL. But the rest of their, team from a asset standpoint does look a little bit questionable. Now, they still have stars on this team. They still have Jarrett Cole, who is the head of his rotation, but it was down bad for them last year. They tried and failed. They lost 2 of their top pitchers in their starting rotation, so that's going to really hurt them moving forward. They do also have Jordan Hicks in the bullpen. Came over from the Charlotte Cougars during the course of free agency, so that will be a little bit of a boost for them as well. Then at closer, they do have Tommy Canal still, 31 years old, 81 overall. He was named an all-star this past season. He looks to do some damage, trying to close some games out. Over at the first base position, though, Nashville does have Rhys Hopkins, who was an acquisition from the New Orleans Kings, and he did some good stuff there. .264, 31 homers, 103 ribbies. He's in his prime right now, and he'll help with the Nashville offense, which really struggled mightily over the course of last season. Meanwhile, at second base, we got Whit Merrifield, still in his, still doing good, still playing around. 33 years old and still an 88 overall. And then to wrap up notable players, Brian Buxton, acquired from the Aurora Lightning. He has some great speed, 99 speed. Also has a fantastic arm, 88 arm, 99 reaction time in the outfield, and also 99 speed. His bat is not the greatest for somebody that is a 90 overall, but they're going to pay him like it. $15 million a year for 5 years, but he'll be some great defensive help in the outfield for the Nashville Blues. And now here comes the Minnesota Ducks, who are trying to chase the Chicago Freeze. They tried their best, but they're looking like a fringe playoff team right now. They're ranked 10th. They do have a good pitching staff that's ranked 7th on paper as of right now. So we'll go ahead and check out this roster. They do have some good starting pitching. Their top 3 consists of Luis Castillo. He is able to come back and only earning $5.8 million a year. That is a great deal for them. Then they still also have Patrick Corbin and Ryan Yarbrough, who was acquired in free agency from the Washington Senators. So a nice little top 3 brewing here for the Minnesota Ducks. And then to round it out, they got Brady Singer, who's an A potential guy, and Tajon Walker is pretty good as well, 79 overall. But to close things out, to try to shut the door this season is going to be Trevor Rosenthal. He is coming in 84 overall, 31 years old. He was an all-star back in season number 1, and you could see why. An ERA of 3, but had 44 saves, in 48 save opportunities. That's what I call really going ahead and getting the job done. Then, of course, they got some players all over this field. Will Smith, for example, he's back with the squad. They even acquired Tom Murphy in free agency. They got him from the Denver Bald Eagles, and he only played 9 games for him last season. We'll see if Minnesota does a little bit better in utilizing him here. Then, of course, one of the best players in the USBL. We got Fernando Tatis Jr., 95 overall, 23 years old. He is a youngin', but he is really talented. He's back with his Minnesota Ducks squad once again. Finally, in center field, we got a big acquisition for the Minnesota Ducks in Ramon Laureano. 88 overall, came in from the New York Knights. He played in 151 games back in season 1. Batted .286. 34 home runs, 99 RBIs to go with it as well. We'll see if it is enough to be able to go ahead and chase the Chicago Freeze in this division. I think they have to win their division. They don't want to deal with the Chicago Freeze in the divisional round, assuming that they do make the playoffs next season, or at least this season here in year number 2. So now we go ahead and move ourselves into the AL West. And here in the AL West, we got the Houston Hurricanes. They rebranded from the Houston Astronauts, as they were called back in season number 1. As we'll go ahead now, check out their roster to get in. They got a good pitching staff. They got Mike Clevinger as their number 1 pitcher, and they still have Dylan Bundy as their number 2. Brian Peterson will certainly be interesting as well. He is an A potential guy, 26 years old. He is a very good young pitcher for the Houston Hurricanes. This bullpen is something else. They got a 1-2 potentially free punch. They got Nick Anderson. They got Jose Alberto. And then they do have John Gant as well. So great relieving core for the Houston Hurricanes. Nick Anderson didn't play much this season. He had 38 appearances, but when he was in, he was electric. 1.95 ERA. He's almost like a de facto closer. Over at first base, we do see that Josh Bell is back with the squad. He is in his prime right now, and an 81 overall as well. Then at third base, we got J.D. Davis, 28 years old, 80 overall to go with that as well. Played 146 games last season, 277, 24 home runs, and 65 ribbies to go with that. Then at shortstop, we got Miguel Reyes, who is still kicking pretty well, 33 years old, but still an 80 overall. He had a solid year with them last year, 281, 11 homers, and 46 RBIs, so a very good shortstop for the Houston Hurricanes. In left field, this outfield, at least 2 of the 3 outfielders are really good. They got Christian Yelich. He is the heart and soul of this team. A potential, 94 overall, 30 years old, and he was a guy that was an all-star last season, so that is some very good stuff. Then in center field, they do also have Luis Robert. He was a guy that, was a pretty young fellow, still learning a little bit, batted under 200, but he certainly does have the tools to be more successful this season. He's got good speed, and his contact ability has improved. He is also an A potential. So we go ahead now and check out another rebranded team. We have now the Honolulu Islanders. They were called the San Jose Marauders, but that is going to change this season. This was a team that was in a buying status at the trade day back in year 1, but did not make the playoffs. Despite that, hopefully they can change that tune this year. They got good pitching. They got Zach Gallion, Sonny Gray, and then Shawnee Ohtani as well. He's up to an 81 overall too. And he's also a two-way player, so they can play him out in the field if he chooses to do so. He was mainly a pitcher for them, though. They also got good relievers as well. They got Giovanni Gallegos out here. He's a pretty good relief pitcher. And then Tyler Rogers is also doing some pretty good stuff in their both in their primes as of right now, and doing some good work for the Hawaiian Islanders. For the closer, they still have Will Smith as well. He's an 82 overall, so the pitching looks pretty good. Was surprised they did not make the playoffs in year 1, especially with the moves that they made. They still have Gary Sanchez. He's a guy that actually came over from the Charlotte Cougars, so the Honolulu Islanders, they did not waste around to make sure that they bolstered up this roster a little bit. They do also have Anthony Rizzo. He's still kicking really strong, 32 years old, but was on the All-Star team in the previous season. At third base, we have Matt Chapman, who was acquired mid-season from the Denver Bald Eagles, but didn't really help them from the fact that they didn't make the postseason. We'll see if that changes with Matt Chapman this season, see if he gets some experience in playoff action. Then in left field, we got Eloy Jimenez, 25 years old, 87 overall, and an A potential, but that's not even the biggest story. Mike freaking Trout is still on this team. He is one of the best players in the USBL in his prime right now, 30 years old, 98 overall to go with it. He batted nearly 337 home runs, 94 ribbies. This is a guy that is capable of being the face of your franchise. Moving on now to another team in the AL West, we have the Las Vegas Lounge Wizards. They got a great team on paper. They're listed as the 5th highest rated team with the second most power, and they have a top 10 pitching staff as well as a top 10 team defensively in the field. So really not a lot of excuses for Las Vegas. They were a little bit disappointing in season number 1. We'll see if they can change that narrative, and they got guys. Stephen Strasburg, he's a 93 overall. He's an A potential kind of guy as well to go with it. At reliever, they also have Seth Lugo. They were able to re-sign him in free agency to pair up with Jake Dykman. So this is a good relieving bullpen that we're looking at least like the top 3 or 4 guys. Joseph Shaw is a little questionable. At catcher, they do also still have Travis Denard. He had that free home run game that really was one of the best individual games in the regular season. But after that, though, he really didn't do too much. 252, 22 home runs, and 58 RBIs. We'll see if he can build off of that. They do also have Miguel Sano at first base. He's in his prime right now, 28 years old, and an 81 overall. Great power hitter as well. 99 power for his left-handed pitching, 89 power versus right-handed pitching. Plus, they also have Adam Frazier at second base. He's an 80 overall, a great defensive asset for the Las Vegas Lounge Wizards. Over at shortstop, we got Marlon Gonzalez. Over in left field, we got Lourdes Guerrero Jr. with some really good stuff. 87 overall. Decent defender, but he makes his name at the plate. 89 power. He is just a killer versus left-handed pitching, and has good vision as well. 72 vision, that's pretty solid. But one of the best players that they have on this team is Cody Bellinger. How about this? 99 arm, 95 feeling, 97 reaction. you're not going to be able to run on Cody Bellinger that often. He's going to cover a lot of space. Plus, he has a ton of power too. 94 power, averaging out between left-handed and right-handed pitching. This man hits dingers. No questions asked. And then finally, for the right field, we got Kyle Tucker. And Kyle Tucker's pretty good in his own right. Only 25 years old, but already an 81 overall to go with it. So then we go see the Seattle Pilots. And if there was any team out there that was really decimated by free agency, it was the Seattle squad, man. They lost Aaron Judge. They lost Wilson Contreras as well. So it was just a really, tough thing for them to handle. They don't even have anybody over 90 overall. Their biggest guy is Michael Conforto. He is their right field acquisition from the Washington Senators. It is their replacement for Aaron Judge. And, don't get me wrong. He's a good batter, 276, 32 homers and 88 ribbies. But I think what's going to hurt them the most is he's just not as good of a defender as Aaron Judge was. And it doesn't get much better. They only have two other guys of note on this roster. They got Rafael Davies, who is a young, upcoming player, 86 overall, only 25. He had a good year last year. He's going to have to really carry more of the load of the offense on his back. And then they do also have Harrison Bader at center field. He has a lot of speed, very good defensive outfield. For the Seattle Pilots, they did manage to bring him back, which they desperately really needed to do. But other than that, this is just simply not a very good roster at the end of the day. I would not be shocked if Seattle finished towards the bottom of the USBL here in season number 2. It's going to be a rough year. So then we go to the San Antonio Outlaws. Now, the San Antonio Outlaws, they weren't sellers at the trade day deadline, but they finished below 500, but they look like a better team. Looks like they're going to be about middle of the pack. They got a top 5 defense. They got some great speed as well. I like their acquisitions overall. They brought in some really good talent on this team, really doing a good job. At least add some more players, at least trying to add more players, trying to be aggressive. They do still have their two nice starters in Aaron Savall and Andrew Haney. Aaron Savall, particularly, only 26. He had a tough go last year, 3.58 ERA, 8-10 to show for it as well. So hopefully he can have a little bit of a bounce back. Andrew Haney, on the other hand, also a guy that he did a lot better. He actually had a really good season, 2.73 ERA. It's his best season in the professionals leagues, but we'll see if he can replicate that again. They do have a really nice closer though. Jose Leclerc is the closer for the San Antonio Outlaws. He's got some pretty good stuff. He knows how to get guys out. He's going to be a tough cookie. Got great velocity as well. He has 94 velocity as well, so he's going to be a good closer for San Antonio this upcoming season. Then at third base, they still have Jose Ramirez. Now, Jose didn't get a lot of love, but he's a good player, man. 274, 32 home runs, 84 RBIs as well to go with all of that. So this is a nice player overall for San Antonio. But there's not a lot of depth behind them. They need to really develop somebody in the event that Jose Ramirez wants to leave, because after this season, he could very well be a free agent. We do also have Javier Baez. He came back for the San Antonio Outlaws. Had a tough year last year, but he has some great power. He's a great defender as well. He's an asset out there in the field. And then there are two outfielders of note I want to talk about is Teoscar Hernandez. In his prime right now, 85 overall. He's got really good power. 87 power versus right-handed pitching and 83 power versus left-handed pitching. Also got solid speed, 69 speed, nice, and also a 69 arm, also nice. Finally, to wrap up the San Antonio Outlaws in terms of notable guys, we got Trent Grissom out there in center field. Great reaction time, not the greatest arm, only a 72 arm really to show for it. It's okay, but it's not like world beat or anything like that, but he's a guy that can cover a lot of space out there in center field. So the Charlotte Cougars are on deck, and I would be shocked if they finish close to last place again in the NL East. This was a team, they have what is considered the best pitching staff in the USBL coming to this season, and their starting rotation is going to be absolutely ridiculous. They got Shane Bieber, they got Kente Mata, they got Mike Soroka as well. He's an acquisition from the Atlanta Barons. They brought him in as their number 3 starter. They still have Luis Severino, and then on top of all that, they brought in Pablo Lopez from the Nashville Blues. He's a really good starter too, and he's going to be their number 5 starter. Like, this is a really fantastic starting rotation, one of the best starting rotation in the USBL. Plus, they managed to keep Shane Bieber, and that's a really good bonus too. They do also have a good closing pitcher in Raciel Iglesias. He was named to the All-Star team last season. He's an 80 overall, and he's a guy that did end up with 38 saves and 42 opportunities, although his ERA of 4.27 is a little bit concerning though. Then out in third base, they got Jamir Condiero, still 81 overall, brought back from the Charlotte Cougars. He had 150 hits last season, so he knows how to hit that baseball. Not the greatest power hitter and doesn't drive in a ton of runs. 71 RBIs it's solid, but it's not world beater either. But you know, he's a good hitter for the Charlotte Cougars though. Then they also have Tim Anderson at shortstop. He was also named to the All-Star team last season. 85 overall in his prime as of right now. Contact versus left-handed pitching might as well just be barbecue chicken, and 79 speed is pretty good as well. In left field, they still have Marcel Osuna, who is an absolute threat at the plate, but is a little bit of a liability over on the defensive side of the ball. Only a 41 arm, so he's easy to run on in sacrifice fly situations. And that will wrap up the preview for the Charlotte Cougars, at least going a little bit more in depth. So up next now is the Jacksonville Suns, and Jacksonville they might also struggle a little bit. Might not be as bad as the Seattle Pilots, but you know, the roster leaves a little bit to be desired. They still have some pretty solid guys on the team, quite a few players, I would say, but really not anything too crazy. Their starting pitching is probably their biggest strength. They do have Aaron Noah. He's back and was named to the All-Star team in the previous season. He's a really great player for them, their opening day starter. And then their number 2 starter in Marcel Gonzalez as well. He is a starting pitcher for them. Does a really good job of not walking batters necessarily, and has 96 break attribute. So he's got some nasty off-speed stuff as well. Over at shortstop, they got Alberto Mondesi, and this dude can fly. 95 speed, 99 stealing as well. He has pretty good defensive attributes as well. 86 reaction, 83 arm, and 87 fielding. The question really for him is, can he develop that batting and become more of a threat at the plate without having to rely on his speed? Another person that they did bring back is Starling Marte. He's getting on the wrong side of 30, but he's still a pretty good player, man. He's got 90 arm. He's got a great arm out there in center field. Not as fast as what he used to be, though. Only 73 speed now, but still has some good contact. He's a decent power hitter. Leaves a little bit more to be desired, but he has great vision. He is going to be a tough player to go ahead and strike out. Then at second base, we got Kevon Biggio, and he's a nice all-around player. Doesn't do anything too terribly great, but he does have a really good arm. He's got an 80 arm. He's got 76 reactions, 75 fielding as well. And then to wrap things up here for the Jacksonville Suns, their best player in the bullpen, Chris Martin, does a phenomenal job of not walking any batters, got great philosophy, and on top of all of that, his off-speed stuff is absolutely ridiculous. A 99 attribute for that. He's going to throw some nasty stuff there if he can get his fastball going as well. So this brings us to the New Orleans Kings, who are also in the National League East, and this was a team that probably took one of the biggest L's in terms of free agency. They allowed Jordan Alvarez to actually walk, and Indianapolis was able to sign him to a really cheap contract as well. Now, they should still be a really good defensive team, but it's going to be a struggle for them to go ahead and try and generate some offense this upcoming season. But at least their pitching staff, they does have the opportunity to at least keep them in some games. They got some good starters on this squad. For example, they got Max Scherzer as their number 1 starter. They do also have Jose Barrios. He is their number 2 starter in this pitching rotation. Then they got Hyun-Jin Ryu, who has a great bunt. He got 99 bunt if they need him to bunt for whatever reason. He's an 82 overall. And then even their back end's not too bad. Michael Lorenza is here. He's a New Orleans guy. And then Mike Folinsky, he's also here as well. In their bullpen, they do also have Andrew Miller. So even after the starters get tired, Andrew Miller can come in and he can go ahead and try to take care of some business as well. And their closer is James Karshack. So like I said, this pitching staff is really good. The question is, do they have anybody that can step up and replace the production that Jordan Alvarez provided for this squad that took them to the playoffs, at least a wild card appearance? Also on top of that, they got Drew Pomeranz. It's an embarrassing amount of abundance of wealth for this New Orleans pitching rotation. They do have Roberto Perez, though. He's still there on the team. He's a great defender, but again, not a great hitter per se. He's a okay power hitter. Kind of struggles with making contact with the ball. Only 35 contact hitting. You know, and facing majority right-handed pitching, that could be an issue. Might have a low batting average this upcoming season. Because of that, he did only bat .235 last season. But then the only other player that they have that could potentially be a threat is Victor Robles. They did bring him in through free agency. He signed away from the Milwaukee Brewers, but he hasn't hit very well either. Only batted in the 220s the past 2 years. He's going to really have to step that up for this New Orleans team to get back to the playoffs, because he's really the only other notable player in the field. It could be a pretty tough year for the New Orleans Kings at the plate. The Philadelphia Patriots are back and getting ready to go ahead and try to defend their NL East crown. As the Philadelphia Patriots, they got a pretty good hitting team, 5th in contact, 7th in power. As we go ahead and see what the Philadelphia Patriots have in store for us this upcoming season. They still got a pretty good pitching rotation. They got Mac Fry, they got Corbin Burns, they even have Jameson Taillon. This is a pretty good pitching rotation. I was actually shocked that they were swept by the San Francisco Seals last season because of how good their pitching rotation was. From their 1 through 3 guys, it was really tough to see, to be honest. But again, San Francisco almost won the whole thing. We do have a nice pitcher in Trevor May as well. He did some good stuff he actually kind of struggled last year, 1 for 6, but does have 21 saves. So might have been put in some awkward situations, unfortunately. But then we get into the field. Now, DJ LeMahieu is still there. He is their starting second baseman, and he's a pretty good hitter. 257, does some good stuff at the plate. He's more known for his arm, though. However, he can draw a lot of walks. That vision that he has is certainly elite. And then the other 2 players in their batting order to watch out for sure. George Springer, he's got good power, 86 power for his right-handed pitching, and is a good all-around batter. Does not have any weaknesses in his game when it comes to the plate. Then, of course, you can't talk about the Philadelphia Patriots without Bryce Harper. Starting right fielder, 94 overall. Can do everything for you. Not the fastest guy, only 63 speed out there in the right field. But when you're a right fielder, you don't have to be that quick as you would if you were, say, in center field, for example. So Bryce Harper, he's going to be out for revenge. Maybe more than just an all-star appearance this season. A team that had a chance to make it to the postseason last year, they were involved up until the very end, was the Washington Senators. They almost actually tried to force their way in that conversation. Washington also has a good batting order, 7th in contact, 9th in power, but can their pitching staff do what needs to be done? They're also might have a hard time generating runs, simply because this is also a team that is not very fast. This is not the fastest team on the face of the planet, but that being said, their starting rotation leaves a lot to be desired, to be honest with you. They do have one promising player in Matt Thompson, who has never pitched at the USBL level, has played in 1 game. but they're really going to have to step up as a rotation. One silver lining for the Washington's pitching rotation, they do have Liam Hendricks, though. He's a star closer for him, was named to the All-Star game last season. 92 overall, 33 years old, and is an A potential, obviously. So you love to see that. Guy, he was only 1 for 3, but he had 44 saves, though, and had a pretty low ERA, hovering around 2.8. Over at first base, though, they made some acquisitions in the field. They got Pete Alonso from the Baltimore Stonecrabs. He was an all-star over in the American League. And now he's out here in the National League now, so you like to see that. Then they also have some really great talent at second base. They got Graver Torres, and then they even have David Fletcher as well. 2 really talented guys there at second base. If one of them will have to start over the other, but I would imagine the other person will be in that designated hitter position. Then at third base, we got Eduardo Escobar. He's pretty good too. 33 years old, still an 80 overall though. He's got a good arm out there and has some solid reaction time, which is really crucial for that hot corner with good vision to go with it. Then in left field, gotta have the JD Martinez. 34 years old, 85 overall. He is a menace versus left-hand pitching. 96 contact, 96 power versus left-hand pitching. There's a left-hander on the mound. Might as well call it barbecue chicken against JD Martinez. Also in center field, we got Quintel Marte, who was able to stay in free agency for the Washington Senators. Batted .262, 22 homers and 89 ribbies. He does some good stuff in the field for them and is pretty good against left-handed pitching himself. 95 contact versus left-handed pitching, and has great vision as well. 91 vision. He's going to draw walks, and he's going to make you work to try to get him to strike out. So the Indianapolis Indians did make it to the playoffs last season, but the thing about Indianapolis, though, is that they might have made it just because they were in the weakest division in baseball, but they're looking to leave no doubt. They certainly did make some improvements to their roster over this past season. They still got a couple of good starters here. Trevor Bauer is a notable guy. He's an ace worthy of that attention. And then Cico Sanchez is a pretty good number 2 pitcher as well. Now, he's only 23 years old, but he has a potential. He has 99 velocity as well. If he works on his craft, works on his control, he's going to be a dangerous pitcher for a very long time for the Indianapolis Indians. Then they also have Diego Castillo. He is their lead relief pitcher for the Indianapolis Indians as well. 81 overall, 99 velocity. He will throw nothing but gas at you, but that 88 break means he has some nasty off-speed stuff as well if you aren't ready for it. And then at closer, Kenley Jensen is here for the Indianapolis Indians as well. So this is a very good pitching staff for Indianapolis as well. At least pretty top heavy. 99 breaking ball. Not the fastest thrower. He only has 76 velocity. So he's not somebody that is too terribly, quick with his fastball. But he is pretty good with controlling it. He won't walk too many people. Then at catcher, we have Carson Kelly. He's up to an 80 overall now with that B potential. Not very fast, but he is a good player defensively for the Indians. Over at second base, they still have Jose Altuve. He was a really big force for them this past season. 286, 25 homers, and 74 ribbies. Almost carried them past the LA Saints, but it just wasn't meant to be. Alec Baum is also back. He's at third base, and he's a great contact hitter. Good fielder to go with it as well. Got a good arm, so he's going to set some good contact stuff, and he's got a potential still, so that's really cool. Francisco Lindor's here. This is a great infield for the Indianapolis squad, man. 28 years old, 90 overall. You want to talk about a guy that can do anything at the plate. He's your man right there. He can get the job done. Great reaction time at shortstop as well. Then their big acquisition this offseason, Jordan Alvarez. They got him. Look at this contract. $3.6 million over 2 years. This was a bargain, as this was a guy that batted 342 home runs, 116 RBIs. he can mess around and be the cheapest contract to win the MVP award. I'm being dead serious. And then to round out the Indianapolis Indians, and what's a really solid lineup, we got Max Kepler. He is an 80 overall as well. Got solid vision, got some solid power stuff, but he's more known for his defense, 86 reaction and 83 fielding to go with it. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other teams in the NL Central, what was considered the worst division in all of baseball last season. The Louisville Colonials, they are ranked 20th this season, but they do have a good defense and they have a lot of speed to work with. Let's go ahead and check out what this squad is breaking out. They got Walker Buehler and Dallas Keuchel as their 2 starting pitchers. Both of them did make it to the All-Star game. We'll see if their 2 other pitchers their 3 other starting pitchers can step up though. Jordan Montgomery, Yu Darvish, and Brett Anderson. When these 3 guys can step up and have good years, they can still be competitive like they were, even with a roster that isn't that great. They do also have Taylor Rogers as well. He's an 85 overall. Great break, great control, great velocity. It's just a matter of the mental side of things. Does he have that, or does he still need to work on it? Over at catcher, they do have Buster Posey. He's a nice veteran for them. Doesn't have the bat like he used to, but he still has decent vision, 71 vision, but is more known for the defense at this point. 87 fielding, 83 reaction, a good arm as well, 74 arm. He's a good little stopgap while they're waiting for guys like Evan Skog and Ronaldo Hernandez to develop. At second base, Nico Horner is still here, and great defensive guy as well. Good speed too, 80 speed. That'll help him out when he's batting because he doesn't have the greatest batting attributes. Does have decent vision though, more known for the defense as well. Over at shortstop, Trey Turner is here, and he's ready to rock on out. Bat almost at 90 overall, but gotta get better at hitting. He's capable of doing it. He batted .335 2 years ago. Kind of a down year last year. We'll see if he can recover. He is capable of it. He has good contact hitting statistics and 99 speed, so he is very capable of bouncing back if he wants to, and he has it in him. The Milwaukee Brewers are on deck, and to be honest with you, Milwaukee is one of those teams that doesn't do anything good. They are actually really slow. They have the worst speed in the USBL, and then one of the bottom 5 pitching staffs in the USBL as well. They do have a couple of solid pitchers though. Zach Greinke and Charlie Morton are still here, but they are both 38 years old, so they might drop like a brick because, you know, 38-year-olds, they usually don't hold up over the course of the season. So going to need somebody like Grayson Rodriguez to really develop quickly to take over for one of them, because they're going to start as the 1 and 2 punch for Milwaukee. But that being said though, this is not a very exciting pitching rotation if I'm being honest. They do also have Freddie Peralta, and he's actually pretty young, 25 years old. Same overall as Zach Greinke, and does a real good job of striking out batters. Also good at preventing hits as well. On top of it, does need to work on his control. Does have a tendency to walk some batters, but you know, he can still grow a little bit. He is a pretty solid relief pitcher. Over at the catcher position though, we got James McCann, who was an all-star for him this past season. Has decent power, but has an even better defender. 80 reaction, that's going to be good to make sure there's not as many pass balls. Manny Pena is back with the Milwaukee Brewers. He did test free agency, but decided to re-sign. He's a great fielder for him, and if James McCann goes down, he can step in and do a pretty good job defensively. Over at second base though, we got Jonathan Swoop, who is playing at that second base once again. He is an 82 overall. Good fielder, 84 reaction, 80 fielding, and a decent power hitter as well. He's got 70 power and decent vision with that 70 vision. But their biggest star on this team is Alex Bregman, and he is looking to help lead this team to the playoffs. He batted .306. Huge bounce back from what he had 2 years ago, but 23 home runs, 86 RBIs as well. We know he's capable of more. We'll see if he can dig into that. He does have great contact versus left-handed pitching, 99 contact. You don't want to have a left-handed pitcher against Alex Bregman under any circumstance. In left field, there is also Clint Frazier here. He's 27 as of right now. Nice little all-around hitter, but an even better defender. 80 free arm, 82 fielding, and an 85 reaction time. Not a lot is going to get past this guy while he's out there in the field for the Milwaukee Brewers. Up next is the Aurora Lightning, and the Aurora Lightning is a pretty interesting team. They had the #1 pick, and they were, looked like a team that could end up winning the division, but they kind of fell apart a little bit. They might do that again. They're not very good on defense, but I do like how this roster is looking for them. They got 2 good pitchers here. They got Denson Lament as their #1 starter. He has 99 velocity. He can throw it past you any given day. Zach Palzak, though, he was an all-star for him last year. We'll see if he can replicate that, but he has a very good stamina, 92 stamina. If he's on, he can certainly go the distance. But one thing to watch out for here is the #1 overall pick, George Alberto Hernandez. He's pretty close to joining the USBL squad as well. Not too much of a difference between him and, say, like an Austin Gomber or a Luis Perdomo. He could be joining the USBL club, being the first custom recruit from this draft class to do just that. We'll just have to wait and see how the rest of the season plays out. At reliever, we got Tony Gonsolin. He is a nice little relief for him. Got some insane breaking ball stuff as well. He's got a 99 break. Good velocity as well. Got 81 velocity. 83 home run per 9. So he's not going to give up a lot of home runs. Pretty fundamentally sound pitcher. Then there's their catcher, Ryan Presley. He has 86 overall. 33 years of age as well. Got great control. So he's not going to walk a lot of people. And has some insane breaking ball stuff. Even though he might not have the most velocity on his pitches, but he is not going to blow a lot of saves though. Over at second base, we got Kiki Do You Love Me Hernandez. Comes in as an 82 overall. Not that quick, only 54 speed, but a very good defensive baseman, solid power hitter, and also decent vision as well to go with all of that. Kiki Hernandez could be in contention for a Gold Glove at the end of the day. But their star on this team is Anthony Rendon still, and he is electric at the plate. He can do anything for you. Not great versus right-handed hitting when it comes to, generating power, but he makes up for that on the left-hand side of the plate. Also really good vision as well. The one weakness for him, though, he's not the best defender, which is why he's not like a 99 overall, but that might be, because of age, starting to get a little bit older, but he's still a star player. At shortstop, one of their acquisitions is Isaiah Kiner Falifa. He is the new shortstop for the Aurora Lightning, acquired from the New York Knights, actually. He is a great defensive shortstop. 96 reaction, 92 fielding. Hopefully that helps with that defense a little bit while they're waiting for some of their prospects to develop, such as Jahan Bates and Xavier Edwards. Over in left field, we also have Dominique Smith as well. Great hitter for them. Pretty nice all-around stuff, but is a little bit of a liability in defense. Not the best defensive attributes from your starting left fielder. So then we also have the Memphis Bombcats. Now, Memphis, they did have the worst USBL rated team back in season 1, but they're a little bit better now. They are now considered 27th ranked. But you have a great defense. They got a lot of speed as well. This is a team that overachieved back in year #1, even though they ended up not necessarily making the playoffs. But that being said, they got some guys here. They got some players that, can definitely do some pretty good stuff for them. Starting with their starting pitching, they are going to be led by James Paxton. And he's not necessarily like the best ace in the world, only an 84 overall, but there's a lot of young pitching to be excited about. For the Memphis Bombcats, they have Ian Anderson, they got Hunskar Yoa, Jordan Balcevic is here as well. These are guys that certainly need to develop, but, it's a pitching rotation that has promise, even though they may not be the most talented pitching rotation as of right now. They do also have a star catcher in JT Realmuto. JT Realmuto, 31 years old, 91 overall as well. This is a pretty good catcher to say the least, and has some pretty solid batting stuff. You know, doesn't really have any weaknesses, doesn't necessarily have like glaring strengths either, but he has a fantastic arm, a 94 arm that is going to make it really difficult to steal on if he does react properly to any stealing attempts that the Memphis Bobcats have to deal with. They do also have Matt Olson, who is an 86 overall, a potential guy still, so he still might grow a little bit. He's a great power hitter. He has the ability to really throw the ball, or not throw the ball, but hit the ball really hard against right-handed pitching, even though his contact stuff isn't that great. Not very fast either, but he is a good defender, at least with what he has. He wasn't blessed with like the greatest throwing arm, only a 56 arm, but got great reaction, got great fielding, so he's fundamentally sound, even though he may be physically hampered just a little bit. Over at second base, we still have John Birdie as well to hold things down for the time being, but Michael Busch is here at the USBL level as well. I'm imagining he'll eventually take over the starting second baseman duties. John Birdie is still in place as of right now, but more so as a placeholder for Michael Busch for the time being. Over at third base, we do also have Chris Bryant. Now, Chris Bryant, you know, pretty solid hitter, 305. He was in the rain to try to go ahead and go after that for the highest batting average award over the course of the season, the Hank Aaron Award as well. Just didn't really materialize for him, but he's a pretty solid hitter as well, particularly against left-handed pitching, and he's a decent infielder as well. Not great at defense, but he's not a liability either. And then to round out the Memphis Bombcats, we got Giancarlo Stanton, who Giancarlo seems like he was a guy that kind of could have done better. 264, 34 home runs, 105 ribbies. Would expect a little bit more from the contact hitting, but only a 58 contact for his right-handed pitching does kind of cap how high he can get his batting average up to, but he's still a phenomenal power hitter though. He does have good defense as well. He's got an 81 arm out there in left field. It's going to make it kind of hard to steal on him, and has a decent reaction time on top of that. And then to round out the Memphis Bobcats, at least for notable players, we got center fielder Kevin Kiermaier. And Kevin Kiermaier is amazing at defense, but the problem with him, and that's why he's only an 83 overall, his batting stuff, it leaves a little bit more to be desired, as you can see, but does have 90 speed though. He's a really fast guy. He just needs to develop that batting, although I don't know if it's going to come for him at all or not, considering he is 31 years old. But still a great player to have on defense. But let's go ahead and talk about a team that probably is the biggest winner in free agency, the Phoenix Firebirds. They did not make the playoffs last year, but they are a lot more loaded with some serious talent, and they are led by Aaron Judge. He was a huge free agent acquisition. This lineup that they have going on is electric. Look at this roster. They got a really good roster, and I am excited to see how the Phoenix Firebirds do this upcoming season. They still need to go ahead and work on their starting rotation a little bit. They do have Carlos Carrasco as their day one starter, their opening day starter. And he's decent, 84 overall. He is 35 years old. They will need to go ahead and develop some serious starting pitching talent in their farm system, or get some younger pitching in the minor leagues. They do also have Corey Kluber as well, Joey Wukiza, Zach Eflin, and Jeff Samardzija. So this is definitely an older pitching rotation, at least for the starting staff. Now, they do also have Devin Williams in the bullpen as well, and he is going to be extremely tough to hit off of. He's going to get a ton of strikeouts as their setup guy. Nasty off-speed stuff, and great velocity as well to go with it. Does struggle with walks a little bit at times, but if he can figure out how to control his stuff, man, he is going to be really tough to hit off of. Then at closer, they do also have Josh Hader. Josh Hader, 3-1, 35 saves in 39 opportunities last year. ERA under free. Pretty good closer for the Phoenix Firebirds. They do have Tommy Hunter in there as well. They need like a backup closer or something. Another person for the bullpen. So this is a nice little bullpen that they got going on. At catcher, they got Austin Nola as well. He batted pretty solid last year. 252, 13 homers, 41 ribbies over the course of last season. Not a very fast guy out there in catcher, but I mean, when your only job is to block the plate, you don't need to be too terribly fast. He's got some decent attributes, decent defender and a pretty solid hitter, nice all-around player for them. At first base, they do also have Luke Vogt. Luke Holt is a very good power hitter for them. 87 power versus right-handed pitching and 93 versus left-handers. But he's not that great out in the field, and he's definitely not fast. Good thing, first base, you're not asked to cover as much ground, but not going to be a guy that's going to be legging out a lot of hits in the infield. Second baseman, we got Jeff McNeil for the Phoenix Firebirds. In his prime right now, by the way. 29 years old, 88 overall. They also got Garrett Hampson through free agency. They got him from the Atlanta Barons as well. So they are nice and loaded out there in second base. I actually would not be shocked to see one of these two guys end up hitting in designated hitter, because both the American and National League have designated hitters in this series that we got going on. So very deep at second base for sure. Third base, we got Gio Urshela, 85 overall in his prime as well. Coming back after he hit 291 last year, 19 homers, 79 ribbies to go with it as well in 141 games played. They got some decent depth. They got a promising prospect as well as Jacob Gonzalez. He's up to a 63 overall now. Then to round out the infield, we have Gene Segura, who is going to be rounding out the infield for them. This is a very good infield for the Phoenix Firebirds. They are very loaded. They got some depth in all of their positions. This should be a really solid infield for the Phoenix Firebirds, especially on defense. Gene Segura, he is a Gold Glove caliber player on the defensive side of the ball. Hitting is a little bit questionable. Doesn't have some great hitting attributes. He does have some decent vision and has good speed, but that being said, he's not going to be a guy that's going to hit a ton in your lineup. He will, however, be a guy that can get the job done on the defensive side. So that leaves the outfield. Now, we know that Juan Soto is still around. This is their top player. He batted 296 last year, 31 homers, 76 ribbies. This is a guy, he is a very talented baseball player. He was named to the All-Star game last year. Phenomenal contact stats, great power as well, and some good vision. Just a very sound hitter. What holds him back a little bit, he's not the best on defense, and he doesn't have a ton of speed either. So that's why he's not like a 99 overall, but man, he is going to be fun to watch at the plate. Watch out for him. And then on top of that as well, they have their free agent acquisition in Aaron Judge. 97 overall. He was the top signing in free agency, and that's why the Phoenix Firebirds are the biggest winners of free agency. Then we go to the Denver Bald Eagles. Now, Denver played better in the second half, but this was a team that started really slow last season, and they, on paper, look like the worst team in the USBL. They do have decent power. They do have decent defense, but they're going to have a really hard time hitting the baseball, and they're going to have a really hard time stopping people just because their pitching is not very good as well. This could be a tough year coming up for Denver. Might be the worst roster on paper in the USBL this season. They only have a few guys of note here. They got Brandon Lowe. He's a good player out there at second base. He's an 89 overall, 27 years old too, while we're at it. And he was just signed to a 3-year contract, so at least he'll be around for a decent while. They do also have Sean Murphy. Now, Sean Murphy was named to the All-Star game last season. Only got a few years of service on it, and they got him on a pretty cheap contract as well to go with it. Has some good plate discipline and has some solid hitting numbers, so he could, hit some dingers for you, and a good defender. but he might have a hard time hitting the baseball with those contact numbers. And then their starting pitcher, their day one starter is going to be Dustin May. Now, he's not the best number 1 on the face of the planet, and honestly, he probably would be better off as a number 2 or number 3, but he is number 1 as of right now. But he is 24 years old. He's got a potential. He's got a lot of growth in him. There's some things on this roster that they got. They did pick up a nice little custom recruit last year. William Moore is out here. He's a top 50 prospect, for example. But for the USBL team, it's going to be a long year for the Denver Bald Eagles. Up next now, we have the Los Angeles Saints. And the Saints were a team that did end up going to, I believe it was the NLCS last season, but they were stifled by the San Francisco Seals last year. They do come back with a really good roster, number 6 in terms of talent. Their weakness is defense, and maybe they won't have a ton of power, but they can hit the ball. They got good speed, and their pitching staff is pretty close to being top notch. They did re-sign Freddie Freeman and Trevor Story, which is a really big deal for them. But they also got Lucas Gelato as well in free agency. He signs for a pretty penny as well, not a lot. He comes over from the Nashville Blues, so it's nice to see him go to a contender, because that will really boost that pitching staff. And speaking of that pitching staff, it's going to be reinforced with guys that already have Kyle Hendricks, who did go to the All-Star game last year. He's going to be a phenomenal number 2 for the LA Saints. And then they also have Eduardo Rodriguez. He'll be a nice number 3 as well, 28 years old. His ERA, he had a little bit of a down year last year, 12-10, 4.73 ERA. He did pitch in 33 starts last season, but he only had 18 quality starts to show for it. So a little bit of a rough year for him, but hopefully he can bounce back and have a good season. And not only do they have a good starting pitching rotation, they also got a great closer. Edwin Diaz, he was named to the All-Star game last season. He's in his prime right now, man. 86 overall. He's got 99 velocity. He just froze with gas. Question is, can he control his stuff? His walks for 9 is a little bit questionable, and he does have a tendency sometimes to give up some home runs late in games. But if he knows how to control his stuff, if he's locating those pitches, he's going to be almost impossible to hit. So it's already talked about Freddie Freeman over at first base. It was a huge deal that they got him to re-sign. He, coming back, 289, 29 homers, 83 ribbies. He's a guy that you definitely want on your team, no questions asked. And then, of course, they also have Trevor Story. They also re-signed him too, and it will be great. He will hold things down while they have some really good talent in the minor leagues. Leonardo Rivas, Fernandez Nova as well are down here. Renault Delgado. There's some really good prospects here at shortstop, and if they do get aggressive at the next trade day deadline, they could use one of those prospects to get themselves a star level player potentially to try to match what the San Francisco Seals did last year. But then they also have Brian Anderson as well. He's out there at third base in his prime right now, 28 years old, 83 overall though. And this is a guy, he is a solid hitter for the LA Saints. 295, 17 homers, 74 ribbies. Decent contact stuff, but he's an even better fielder. Good reaction time, which is crucial at the hot corner out there in third base. And then to round things out, they do also have center fielder Kyle Lewis. Now Kyle Lewis, he was brought back on a pretty cheap contract, $580,000 a year. So he's going to be a nice contributor. Get a starter like that at that kind of contract, that is a huge deal for them. Still working on some things. Needs to be a little bit better stealing. Needs to be a little bit better with contact hitting versus left-handed pitching. But he's a really good player and is going to be a nice mentor for the other outfielders, such as JJ Burde. He's still trying to develop. And then Patrick Dyer's out here as well. He is actually a rookie. No, actually a second-year player, but he started in his rookie campaign. So that's a really nice boost for the LA Saints. Then we go to the San Diego Whales. Now, the San Diego Whales early on seemed like they were the biggest losers in free agency until we saw what happened to the Seattle Pilots. But I think San Diego, they're certainly going to go ahead and take a step back this season. They're now down to 22nd in terms of talent. They do have nice defense fundamentals, and they're fast out there. They got a pretty athletic team, but it's going to have some growing to do. And hopefully that starting rotation is, everyone, the younger guys, the farm system is ready to step up. They did pick up Jack Flaherty in free agency, though. He comes over from the Cleveland Rockers, who had a little bit of a high ERA, 4.33, so definitely not ideal by any stretch of the imagination, but he will be a decent replacement, a younger replacement for Clayton Kershaw, who did end up walking. They still also have Lance McCullers Jr. here as well. He's going to be their number 2 pitcher this upcoming season. He's got really good velocity, 97 velocity, only 78 stamina though, which is not great for a starting pitcher. But they do also have Jesus Luzardo. He has a potential, only 24 years old too, so he can grow into a really nice pitcher for the San Diego Whales as well. If he can live up to his potential, he's got nasty off-speed stuff, and he also has some very nasty velocity. He can throw it past you any given day of the week. But then after that, there's not really a ton of talent on this team. They do have Jake Cronenworth, who is a third-year player for them out of Michigan. He, the 2 years that he's been up at the USBL level, he's been doing all right, batting .270 over the course of his career, but with the lack of talent on this team, with how they were decimated in free agency a little bit, he's going to really have to be one of those guys that needs to step up and take care of business here in this season. Hopefully he can do that, but he's an all-around player, but he doesn't do one thing great, you know what I'm saying? They do have Ke'Bryan Hayes as well, though. Ke'Bryan Hayes is a really intriguing prospect. He has an A potential still, and this is a guy, again, still working on his hitting a little bit, but he has decent speed, and he does have great reaction time. That defense is what keeps him at the USBL level. Ultimately, that ability to react quickly out there in the hot corner. Shortstop, they do also have Tommy Edman, who was a free agent acquisition from the Seattle Pilots, and that was a big deal for him. He can play in a bunch of different positions. His secondary positions, he can play almost anywhere in the field. He can play second and third base, and he can play anywhere in the outfield, which is really nice to see. So maybe they can work in Luis Arias as well. He's a young player on the rise. And then they also have Brandon Rogers and O'Neal Cruz in the farm system as well. Both A potential guys. But Tommy Edman, he'll hold things down for quite a while here until at least Luis Arias is ready to go. In left field, they do have Eddie Rosario. Now, Eddie Rosario was a free agent acquisition to try to shore things out there in the outfield. He played for Nashville Blues last year, and he had a down year, 227, 20 homers, 59 RBIs. So he kind of had a little bit of a downtime with contract negotiations. When you bat like that, you're not going to get a ton of money. But that being said, they do have custom prospect from when this series first started in Anthony Johnson, still in the wings. He's still an A potential guy. He's a 76 overall at this point, and in his limited action, only batting .233, 14 homers, 46 ribbies. But he is one of those guys that can definitely step up and, play some solid baseball out there in left field. Then to round things out for the San Diego Whales, we got Randy Orenenza out there at center field. He's got some good hitting statistics, great power hitter. He's going to hit some dingers for you for sure. And he's pretty fast as well, 81 speed. Usually you don't see the power and the speed unless it's an absolute superstar, but Randy Orenenza has both. What holds him back, though, is his fielding abilities. He's not the best fielder out there in center field. Now, we'll see how that ends up turning out for him. He's not a Gold Glover, but hey, he did make an All-Star game last year. Maybe he can do that again for the San Diego Whales squad. Up next now, we have the San Francisco Seals. And the San Francisco Seals, man, they come out They are the defending champions of the National League. They almost won the World Series. They took Chicago to 7 games, and this is a team that got better, I think, in the offseason. They are a top 5 roster in the USBL. We'll see if they can live up to that billing, but they got some good starting pitching. We knew this. They got Blake Snell there as their number 1 pitcher, and then from Ball, Valdez going to be their number 2 pitcher as well. So this is good starting pitching rotation. That being said, though, watch out for Harvey Cole. He is a rookie from Nebraska. He was drafted in this past year's USBL draft, and he's going to be starting at the USBL level. He's going to be their number 5 pitcher for the San Francisco Seals. So he's going to replace Nathan Eovaldi out there, who is going to be sent down to AAA level. But watch out for Harvey Cole, man, for potential Rookie of the Year, getting some early playing time. At reliever as well, got Aaron Balmer. Aaron Balmer is here. 99 break, 99 velocity. He's got some nasty stuff for you as well. And then their closing pitcher. Their closing pitcher was really darn good in the postseason. He did not blow a single save, and that really helped propel them for an opportunity to play in the World Series and almost upset Chicago because of it. He is an all-star as well, 88 overall as to go with it. This guy, don't really need much introduction. He's pretty darn good. Then they have Salvador Perez and catcher. He is their starting catcher for this season, but they also have Austin Hedges as well. So they got 2 really good catchers here. And if they want to be aggressive on USBL trade day, they could go ahead and try to pick up some more star power, because Austin Hedges may not get a lot of playing time this season, seeing as he is a backup catcher, but he is phenomenal on defense. Don't get it twisted. At first base, they do have Paul Goldschmidt, who is an all-star from season number 1, and he's a pretty darn good player himself, if I say so myself. Second base, they got Ozzy Albies, one of the top picks from the USBL fantasy draft at the very beginning of the series. He was not named to the All-Star game, but he's a really good player himself. Nice all-around statistics. You love to see that. Only 25 too. Then at third base is Josh Donaldson. This guy was batting sometimes down in number 7, but look at this guy's stats. 275, 23 homers, 91 ribbies. If you're getting that from like your 6-7 hitter, sometimes he was the 5 hitter, that just shows how dangerous this lineup can be. I mean, there's guys all over the place. You got William Adames at shortstop. This is a fantastic roster. They're still a little weak at left field. Center field leaves a little more to be desired as well, but they do have Nick Castellanos. He is in his prime right now, named to the All-Star game this past season, and this is a guy, he hits dingers, man. He is an exciting player to watch. I can attest to that as a Cincinnati Reds fan. This guy is really fun to watch. I think he needs to be higher than 80 overall in the next MLB The Show. Personally, this guy is really good, and they're going to have a really good season this year too. They will be back in the playoffs. We'll see if they make it back to the World Series. That is to be seen, but this is a really good roster nonetheless. So we're down to our last 5 teams. The last 5 teams in the USBL. We're going to go ahead and break down the USBL AL East now, and we'll start with the Baltimore Stone Crabs. And they were a team that I guess technically made it to the postseason last year. They had the tiebreaker game against the Seattle Pilots in season number 1, but they ended up losing that, unfortunately. But technically they did have some playoff action. It was really close either way. But I'm looking at this roster this year. They don't have like a ton of guys. They do have a great starting pitching rotation. They have Julio Arias, who was a free agent acquisition. He comes over pretty cheap too, like around $4 million a year for this upcoming season. So that's a pretty cheap grab. They also have Lance Lynn. They have Justin Verlander as well. So they got some good starting pitching. That being said, there's not a lot of like high-end talent for them though. They do have Manny Machado. He is one of the best players in the league in his prime right now, and has great batter and a great fielder as well. 98 overall, kind of speaks for itself. But then after that, they really only have like Will Myers, and then they also have Ahmad Rosario. So not a lot of high-end talent, but this is still like a decent roster that will still at the very least compete for another playoff spot. I think they're kind of like one of those fringe playoff teams in my opinion. So then we also have the Boston Quakers. Now the Boston Quakers had a pretty tough time last season. They actually did end up going ahead, and they actually were a seller at the USBL trade deadline, and they had it pretty rough over the course of last season. It's kind of showing in their high-end talent. They were big sellers at the trade day deadline, but they still have Mookie Betts. He is an all-star from last season. He is somebody that is able to carry a team. He is going to be electric to watch this upcoming season. He batted .302 last year, 32 homers, 88 ribbies. Probably would have had 100 RBIs if the players around him were a little bit better. But, I mean, they still have some guys in that lineup. They still have Max Muncy as well. He's an insanely good power hitter. They were able to re-sign him in free agency as well. Ken Giles to go with it as well. He's a very good closer, able to get him as well. He's in his prime right now at 31. He has some great off-speed stuff, great velocity. He strikes out a lot of guys. Whenever he gets us to the game, we'll see if they actually get opportunities or not. Paul DeJong is still here as well. He's at the shortstop position, and this is a guy, he's more known for the defense. 92 reaction. Not a lot of things are going to get by him that easily. That 41 speed does hamper him a little bit. That kind of caps his abilities on defense, but he's pretty fundamentally sound. Has a decent arm as well. And then Jonathan Viller, he was actually an acquisition from the, I believe it was the Phoenix Firebirds in free agency. He comes over, but I guess they're kind of hoping for a bounce back year. Only batted .214, 12 homers, 40 RBIs to go with it as well. So that being said, it's going to be really interesting to see what's going to be happening here with Jonathan Viller moving forward. But they should be better than last year. I don't think they'll be sellers at the USBL trade deadline, but I don't think they'll make the playoffs. Now, one team that was certainly hurt in USBL free agency was the New York Knights. They lost a decent amount of high-end talent, but they still got some guys here on this team. They got quite a few really good players. They still have Brandon Woodruff as their #1 starter, but check out Jose Urquidy. He is their all-star pitcher from last season. He's going to be their #2. 12-6 last year, 2.41 ERA. He was dealing last year in a league that is filled with some offensive talent. Then they got Tyler Glasnow as well. He's brought back as well. But then there's a really big drop-off after that. They go down to Joey Murray and Cole Stewart for right now. They're the #4 and 5 pitchers. But man, like, there's a big drop-off after that. They need to develop some more high-end talent in the farm system. At catcher, they have their acquisition, I believe, from the good old-fashioned, what was it? I think it was the Boston Quakers. He was a trade acquisition for them. He didn't bat that great, but that being said, amazing defender, 99 reaction time, 93 fielding. The arm leaves a little more to be desired, only a 62 arm, but he's a really good defensive catcher and was a nice acquisition from that standpoint for the New York Knights when they acquired him last season. At second base, they do also have Mike Moustakas still. He's getting a little bit older, 33 years old, but still is an 83 overall to go with it at the end of the day. Really good power hitter, especially versus right-handed pitching. He's got good vision, so he's not going to be getting a lot of strikeouts on him. He is a little bit of a liability in the infield, though. Only a 69 reaction, nice by the way, and 64 fielding to go with that. But then one of the best players in the entire league is on this roster, Nolan Arenado. He can do it all. He's not that quick, but he can do everything at the plate that he can ask you to, and he is a very good defender as well. No surprises why he was an all-star back in season #1. To round things out for the infield for the New York Knights, they got Dansby Swanson as well, and they required him in free agency actually. They got him from I guess he was on the San Jose Marauders, but they changed their name to the Honolulu Islanders, I should say. It's going to take a little bit for me to get used to that, but he's an acquisition from that team, and it's to place Isaiah Fafia. I'm pretty sure I butchered that. You can roast me in the comments if you want, but it's a plug and play while they're trying to get the farm system right at the shortstop position. So now we move on to the Atlanta Barons, and the Atlanta Barons were certainly pretty busy during the course of free agency. Although that being said, their starting rotation leaves some to be desired. They do have Griffin Cannon, and it's kind of the same situation for them as it was with, say, the Denver Bald Eagles, for example. Their top 5, they do have Griffin Cannon, but he's really the only one that's really scary for them. They don't have a lot of good talent at the USBL level. They need some development quick in the minor leagues to get them going, because Griffin Cannon's really the only good starting pitcher that Atlanta still has, even with how busy that they were at the USBL trade day. Not trade day, but like free agency, it seems like. So it might be a team that gives up a lot of runs, but they're going to be exciting to watch, I think, and I'll tell you why in a second. But it's not all a loss for this pitching staff. They do have Tyler Duffy. He's their best pitcher in this Atlanta pitching staff, and he's a guy that's going to be their setup man for this upcoming season, and doesn't do anything phenomenally that is considered elite, but does a lot of things well, and he will be an asset for the Atlanta Barons. Now, in the field of playing, the other 8 guys that are going to take the field, that's where they really did some work. First off, they pick up Wilson Contreras, who was picked up by the Atlanta Barons, got him from the Seattle Pilots, and he was an all-star last season. That's already on top of an all-star in Pedro Severino, but Wilson Contreras is significantly better. He is a straight-up baller for the Atlanta Barons, and he's going to be an exciting player to watch this upcoming season for Atlanta. They do also have Yohan Moncada as well at third base, a potential guy. He can do some real good stuff for you. He is a guy that maybe not the best hitter and has some decent speed to him, but he has some good fielding abilities, and that's really his calling card, playing some good old-fashioned defense out there in the hot corner. Shortstop, they have 2 really good shortstops. They got Carlos Correa, and then they also have Bo Bichette as well. So one of these 2 guys, I would imagine, would go ahead and play at that designated hitter position this upcoming season. That's what I would think. But that being said, though, maybe look for one of those guys to be traded in order to shore up some weaknesses in their roster if they are aggressive and they're trying to be buyers. Left field is also like that as well. They picked up Tyler O'Neill in free agency, and they even picked up Jesse Winker as well. So they're going to be, nice and filled up there. You'll love to see that. They got some guys around the place. And then finally at right field, Mike Yastrzemski. He's going to be manning right field. So a lineup of Mike Yastrzemski, Tyler O'Neill, and Jesse Winker. It's going to be a fun outfield to watch, I would think. Christian Pash is even, he can get some good run out there in center field as well. He's a really good player. This is a really good outfield, and I don't know if they'll make the playoffs. I think it's kind of like the Baltimore Stone Crabs, where they're going to be a fringe playoff team. But that being said, though, they're going to at least be fun to watch, and we're going to try our best to, get some more looks at Atlanta this upcoming season. So then the final team that I wanted to go ahead and cover is the Cleveland Rockers, and they were rocked in free agency. They're down to, I guess, the 21st best roster in the USBL. They don't have any stars necessarily, but they still have some pretty good, I guess what I would call, B-level players or B-plus players. No superstars, but they still have some solid talent, and their starting rotation is still pretty good too, just not necessarily having an ace. They got Chris Paddock, they got Mike Moustakas, Yanni Chirios, and Sandy Alcantara as well. He was acquired from the Atlanta Barons, actually. They were able to get one of them in free agency. So it's a nice little 1 through 4. They don't have their ace. Jack Flaherty leaving in free agency. That could really hurt them at the end of the day, but That being said, though, this is at least, you know, a solid little like pitching rotation that they got here. Now, they still also have their closing pitcher as well in Kirby Yates. Now, Kirby Yates, he's got insanely good breaking ball stuff. 99 break on his stuff, for example, so that'll be fun to watch moving on this season. You know, 82 overall. At catcher, got Christian Vasquez. 85 overall as well. He's going to be pretty good at that catcher position. Great defensive catcher, actually. Then we move on to second base. They got actually two pretty good second basemen. They got Joey Wendell, who they picked up from the Milwaukee Brewers in free agency and will be presuming to be the starter. But they do also have Dylan Moore, who they acquired from the San Antonio Outlaws as well in free agency. So two solid pickups in free agency. I'm betting one. I would say one of them would be a designated hitter, but one of them might be relegated to the bench. And if that's the case, look for one of them to maybe be traded in the USBL trade deadline. At shortstop, they do also have Marcus Semien, who's still holding things down here, but it probably won't take too long until, say, like Andreas Gimenez goes ahead and takes over. He's growing. And then Brian Rashada, watch out for him as well. He is progressing pretty quickly, 20 years old, 71 overall, a potential to go with all of that. So Marcus Semien penciled in as a starter right now, but we'll see how long that actually lasts. So guys, that is actually going to go ahead and wrap up a year 2 preview. Let me know your predictions down below. Who do you think is going to win it all? Let me know who you think is going to be the biggest surprise this season, and then also let me know who you think is going to be the biggest disappointment here in year number 2. We'll have opening day action in the next episode, so make sure you go ahead, smash that like button for me. Also, hit the subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand stinking new. This is JohnJake Baseball on the mic signing off. I'm hoping you're all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.